to preserve land. Both of those are goals that we hear loud and clear from our neighborhoods and from our community since I've been in office now for over 7 years. Time and time again, we hear from our constituents that public safety is a humongous concern and responsibility for our community, and preserving our open spaces, our trails, and creating more trailheads is a great opportunity as well, and one that many residents want to see the city focus on. And I think that this project that you'll learn more about today does both of those first. And there's a crazy echo, and I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rep. Schwarzbein. Apologies for the audio issues, but today with the presentation, I'm going to pass it on.
Talk to everyone, mute their mic.
Can everyone please mute their mic? I do apologize. So I'll pass it on. The way we're going to conduct the community meeting, we have a presentation with CID going over, past history, where we are right now. Along with us is also DPS, our consultants, our owners rep, developing our bridging documents. We'll transition into them and their slides, and then afterwards we have a polling so everybody can participate. I'll pass it on right now to Mrs. Daniela Quesada.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope everyone can hear the meeting virtually. I hope everyone can listen well. If there's any issues, please, virtually, people at home, if you could add any concern to the chat, we'll have the rest of our staff try to address that. And just a quick note to everybody in the room, we're going to do a brief presentation from the city side. We'll then open up for any questions after that. And then we'll move on to another brief presentation to go over the program by our consultants. At that point, then we'll also have a moment to take some polling, both virtually and here in person. And after that, we'll be able to open it up to a full Q&A session and an interactive discussion with some of our exercises that our consultants have brought on. And so as you all are familiar, the mission of PD and FD is incredibly important to our community. El Paso Police Department's mission is to provide services with integrity and dedication to preserve life, to enforce the law, and to work in partnership with the community to enhance the quality of life in the city of El Paso. El Paso's Fire Department's mission is to provide emergency response, prevention, preparedness, and education to residents, businesses, and visitors of our city so they can live safely and prosper in a hazard-resilient community. As was mentioned earlier, this facility is one of the signature projects of our public safety bond program. This program looks to address major maintenance and renovation of aging facilities. It's going to give additional much needed resources to our police and fire. It's also going to improve the working conditions for our city employees. And it's also going to be able to create this new academy to be able to recruit and properly train new members of PD and FD. The project team currently is being comprised of, on the city side, El Paso Police Department, Fire Department, and Capital Improvement Department. You could see our point of context there are Daniel Garcia and Alondra Gurrola. Our current consultants are DPS, PBK, and G Solutions Group. It's important to note that this project is being delivered through a design build method. That means that our current consultants that are on board are developing the programming that will then inform the next consultants that will come on board, and they will be the ones that will be doing all the design elements. So we're at the period right now of the project development where our consultants are guiding our programmatic needs. And so this is the information that we will be sharing with you all today. So that means all the required spaces and the different types of uses these spaces are going to get, which ones need to be located in close proximity to one another so that you all could become more familiar with the very complex program and use that this facility is really going to offer. Now, looking at our preliminary project schedule, the land acquisition, property acquisition has already been realized. We're in the programming phase currently. This will wrap up in the spring of 2022. However, our design build consultant is going to come on board at the end of this year in the winter, and they will see the project to completion, the design portion in 2022 summer. The construction is slated to be completed in the spring of 2024. Again, this is a very complex facility, and it's going to be designed and built in various phases. Now, if you're not already familiar with the site, we're looking at a close-up of it. Again, our consultants are going to take you on a much more in-depth overview of the site. But as was mentioned earlier, the site selection offers a really great opportunity to conserve as much open space as possible, which will ensure that our trails are preserved and they're not impacted. It's also, from a cost efficiency perspective, very smart because it gives us accessibility from a major thoroughfare, which is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And there's the available utility and stormwater infrastructure. So that way we don't have to use the funds to extend this infrastructure out to a site that might not have it. So you could see that the proposed site for the actual Academy campus is going to be completely surrounded by open space. We're proposing that the parking area can be used both by trail users, mountain bikers, and anyone who wants to enjoy these spaces during non-business hours in the Academy. It's also going to offer added security near these trailheads and open space. And this is also going to maximize open space purchase and potentially improve road to Roundhouse. These are some of the trailheads located in the vicinity of our proposed site. The Academy site is here. This is the full land acquisition. You can see some images here of the trails at this site. Now, one of the ways the full team is going to be respectful of precisely the preservation of this open space and the trails is to create contextual architecture. That means that it will have materials that blend in with the Franklin Mountains and the desert flora. The forms are going to be sensitive to the site conditions, so it's not going to be visually obstructive. The building composition is also going to respect things such as existing arroyos or desert flora. And of course, the design is also going to capitalize on building orientation to take advantage of passive sustainable design. That, along with the requirement that this facility will be LEED Green Globes compliant. The materials, just as I mentioned, are going to reflect the natural color palette that exists on our beautiful mountain. This could take the form of stone, masonry, different construction methods that could incorporate different kinds of natural materials, as well as other materials that reflect the same color palette. And we're going to try to do forms that are, lower level massing, facades that present opportunity to frame views, and again, be as visually unobstructive to the site. The building composition is also going to try to incorporate biophilic design elements. So that means trying to use landscape design and natural design to create a cohesive experience of the built environment and the open space. These are some images of the different kinds of police training amenities the facility is going to offer. They have to go through many rigorous exercises that entail everything from driving courses to closed shooting ranges and doing water rescues. These are some images that show examples of fire training exercises. You could see the fire tower that many of these exercises are conducted on, as well as traffic accident vehicle rescue. This is some of the outreach effort that has taken place so far. You could see that we started in December of last year. The process for this project has been overseen by Bond Overview Advisory Committee, BOAC, as well as the Open Space Advisory Board, OSAB. There's a subcommittee that has also reviewed this work We've also gathered some feedback from the North Hills neighborhood, which is directly adjacent to the site. And of course, this has been discussed in public and open city council sessions. And so with that, I'm going to open up the floors for a brief Q&A on everything that was presented that has to do with just the general project delivery, the project scope, and the project timeline. And then after that, we'll take it over to our consultant. So at this point, if there's any questions. Yes.
Back to that slide with the construction timeline, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No?
There's a couple of slight discrepancies on the presentation. One is that this presentation here shows a trailhead and parking area at the Bowen Roundhouse, and it's not there. It's actually down at Martin Luther King. And so
I'm sorry, you're looking at the board?
looking at this board, and it was the same on your presentation as well. It showed a black dot on a trailhead at the Bowen Roundhouse, and it's actually down at Martin Luther King.
So these trailhead locations were downloaded from the All Trails app?
Oh, that's the problem. Yeah, that trailhead, that is not a trailhead. That's the Bowen Roundhouse. Currently there is no vehicle access to that location. And because, and part of your presentation noted that the Bowen Roundhouse access road may potentially be improved as a part of this process.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see that happen. That would be an amazing thing to happen. And I'm really curious to know if that's something that we're just considering, or if it's something that's actually, because it doesn't impact whether or not the fire and police station is there, because access to the training academy will not be from
Right.
the access road. So is that something that's truly being considered, or is it just something that we're putting in a presentation?
Function of the availability of the budget, and as you may be aware, the construction.
Could he please go to the microphone?
Yes, do you want to come here, Jerry, so you can be heard by everybody, especially people at home?
So the question was, will we actually be improving the street or the access way to the Roundhouse? The answer is it's dependent on availability of budget. Right now, as you know, the construction market has gone crazy. We're seeing inflation to the tune of 50% over last year. I just did a fire station on the west side. The engineer's estimate, which was...
You're really hard to hear back here. Sorry.
Is the microphone even on?
I don't know. How's that? Better? Okay. So I just bid a fire station on the west side, brand new fire station. The engineer's estimate was 5.5 million. The bids came in at 7.2 to 9.3, with most clustered at 7.5. So the market is absolutely crazy. I don't see relief in the market, particularly if the infrastructure bill goes through and Biden's plan for solar and climate change jobs. So we're monitoring it very closely. If the funding is there, we will do it. And if it's not, then we'll have to either look for funding elsewhere or put it off until we have funding.
The other thing I was curious about is, you said it's not going to impact any current trails, although there is a trail that goes from the Lazy Cow trailhead out to the Roundhouse. It's a user-built trail. It may not be on the list of official trails, but it's a good trail, and it does need to remain. I'm hoping that this construction will not impede in that trail that is existing.
So our consultants in their presentation are going to address with a little bit more specificity, all of the trails and, how it all fits in with the site layout.
Okay.
You can get an opportunity, and this is why we put these boards here to interact.
Okay.
So, once we allow them to do their presentation, we'll open it up also.
Okay.
for
Okay. It was kind of just a general question, so thank you. Okay.
Yes, Joe?
So, one more thing, is this set? Are you telling us what's going to happen, or are you asking us what you're planning to do?
So the property location is set. The layout of the buildings and the type of building and what's in the buildings is not set. We have we have all the wants of the police and fire department identified. And we are now in a process of looking at those wants in terms of the budget. The wants are much, much higher cost than the funding that we have. So we're paring that down, and we will prepare what we call bridging documents. That's the requirements that we will hand to the design builder and say, the project must meet this. For example, the shooting range must be indoors, must be 50 yards long, and must have X number of lanes, period. Building finishes must blend in with the Franklin Mountains. Room sizes for classrooms need to be this size. You need to have this much parking. In my experience with design build, the design builders usually come in with some pretty innovative ways of doing things. I had a project in Seattle that I wanted a 750 space parking garage. It had to be there. The design builder came in and oriented the parking garage in such a way to get 1,100 spaces, and that was real value added. And that's why we're doing it design build, because we can get the value of the designer and the builder in actually putting the designs together.
So just to follow up, I want them to get everything they want. I'm more concerned about the actual placement of the facility, because in the previous meetings, what I heard, and maybe you got it from the North Park folks, but I heard they want it farther away from the neighborhood, and this looks like it's as close to the neighborhood as you can get it by still putting the buffer in there.
And Sarah will speak to how close it is to there. And actually, we had a subcommittee of BOAC and OSAB that we asked where the masts should be, and because of utility locations, I think Dr. Richard Bonart was the only one that wanted it further north, and everybody else on that subcommittee, and I believe it was
So,
5, 6
I mean,
people.
I'm the chair of OSAB, and I want it farther away.
But OSAB delegated the process to the subcommittee, and so we followed the recommendations of the subcommittee.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe OSAB agreed to that. I mean, we got 3 people from OSAB here right now. Again, I want it somewhere on this parcel, but I do believe that we heard from the residents that they wanted it farther away from the neighborhood. Now, if the residents are saying they're okay with it there, I think I'd be okay. But what I heard in the meetings was they were concerned about noise that close to the neighborhood.
And we will be addressing that in the presentation. Any noise related activities are deep into the property. The neighborhood, the buffer between the nearest facility that we're thinking about is over 1,000 feet, right? Am I correct? So, and that is administrative type building. So it's not anything that's going to generate noise like an emergency vehicle driving range. And the shooting range is going to be indoors, so you will not have noise from shooting range. So those are the 2 big noise causing items in an academy.
It's located in its position because of the way the drainage works there. There's the earthen dam there. I think this is what you explained to OSAB. The earthen dam is there, and the water goes off to the north
Right.
of where we're looking.
And the utility infrastructure is right at the edge of the property. So electric and gas, we don't have to pay the cost of bringing it further to the north.
Just keep in mind, the intent of this meeting is, yeah, I do apologize. The intent of this meeting is to receive input, because we're barely in the development of developing these bridging documents, as Mr. Germano mentioned, as we're treating you as a public, as a stakeholder. All your input and what's feasible is going to be included into the bridging documents. Same thing for architectural. Yes.
What percentage design is this at of, like, in terms of official construction?
It's not even in design.
It's not even at
No, sir.
0%?
No, it's not in design, because we
Not
don't
at
even have.
40%, 20%, or, okay.
The consultants here are owner's rep. They're assisting the city, CID, to develop these bridging documents. So initially, we met with the stakeholders, which is FDMPD, the maintenance department, and all the internal stakeholders that are associated to this department or this project. But now we're meeting with you, the public, to get your input, to assess while we're developing these bridging documents to see what's feasible. So that's the intent of this meeting. You know, your concerns about locations. Right now, what we're going to show is all proposed. Once the design build team comes and they do further studies, more detailed studies, both taking consideration the budget, utility locations, you know, your concerns or your input as well, what's built into the bridging documents, That's when the design will be developed. So just keep in mind, right now, the intent is for you to just provide input. So we can, yes, sir.
So the only thing that I want to address is the notion of the utility infrastructure. The land directly across from this whole parcel has been sold, as you know, to Foster. And there will have to be infrastructure that's going to go along Martin Luther King. So although it's tempting to look at that from the right now, probably in the time frame that you're looking at, the water utility and stuff will have to be bringing that infrastructure to that area. And of course, from the electrical standpoint, you have the generation facility that's actually further out.
Correct.
So whereas that is a nice thing to talk about, I think it might be in reality a lesser issue if you were to choose a different site.
You want to say something? Go ahead. Thank you, Doctor.
Excuse me if I may, to this gentleman's point, until ground is broke, it's not set in stone. But the gentleman that was just up there, he said, basically it's set in stone, but you're talking about it's proposed, as was the flyer that went out, said it was proposed. Now, let me, one more thing. This gentleman also said he's part of one of the boards that you all say has agreed to the location. He just sat here and said he's the chairman of one of those boards, and that's not what they agreed to. Could you address that, please?
Michael Vanossic, Assistant Director for Construction for the Capital Improvement Department. I don't know if you, is this working?
Yes, sir.
You can't hear it as well up here. I don't think anyone said it was set in stone. If they did, I think that was a misrepresentation. This is a design build contract. So we don't have a design done. We don't have a layout yet of the site. What we will have is requirements for our designer to.
Sir, let me interrupt. You're talking about the site. He said the site was already
Let me,
not proposed.
okay.
It's there. You just showed it up there.
Well, just a
100 acres, and you're going to put the academy 1,162 feet from the back rock walls of North Hills West.
Sir, what I said is the site, as in the 300 acres, is set. That is what I said.
At that location. Let's be clear.
At that
What you're talking about now is you're saying you're not going to move the site, but you may move some buildings around. That's not our concern. We want you to move the entire site.
The purchase has been made.
I understand that, but there are other avenues that could be looked at that I don't feel were looked at.
I understand your concerns.
I just want to be clear. You're saying the site is done.
The 300 acres is where the academy will be located.
Perhaps.
It's purchased for that purpose.
Perhaps.
That's not.
If you break ground, I'll shake your hand, say congratulations. But until that, I'll hold out for it gets moved.
Okay. You know, I appreciate your.
We can agree to disagree because I don't think that's where it should go.
I didn't make the site selection, so I can't speak to the rationale for it.
You're up there speaking for the site selection.
I'm speaking on behalf of the city and the process that we're using.
Understood.
I'm a resident of this community too. And I do the best I can for this community every single day.
I'm not faulting you on your efforts, sir. I'm faulting the location.
And
can we
move? And I think one of the main concerns is the noise. And you did mention that going through the presentation, you were going to present how far and the noise, if it was going to be close to the neighborhood, if we could please give them a chance to explain that. And then we can address this type of concerns.
I just added to what that gentleman said.
No, yes,
and I can wait till the end where we can all have a back and forth, because if you want to talk about their initial PowerPoint presentation, talked about how that location is centrally located.
No, and
nobody in this room believes that's a central location for a fire and police academy and the logistics and headquarters for the fire department. It's a couple miles from the New Mexico border. And then you also said there were major thoroughfares for access, and you listed one of them as Andrew Barcena. That's within a neighborhood, and you're going to roll and then you're going to roll fire trucks down Martin Luther King to go to the shop. They're gonna have to come over the mountain. They're gonna have to come all the way from the east side. It's just not a good location. But if your heart is set on northeast, then rather put it right by the houses. Why don't you move it up near the rock quarry? And as Mr. Bonard already said, you're gonna have that, I believe it was him, there's gonna be construction. Mr. Foster bought all that land below to the east of Martin Luther King. We don't have the thoroughfare, the infrastructure for roads out there. And there's no other roads you can put. You can take McCombs, go over to Stan Roberts, and then come back. Anyway.
I think we would be better off if we moved on with the presentation as this young lady suggested. And it might, I'm not sure it's not gonna answer your questions or change your opinion, but I think it would inform people with a little more information as to what and why things are laid out the way they are. I think it would be probably more productive.
So I hope can you all hear me? I just want to make sure you can hear me, and I do have a tendency to talk fast. I'm going to try to talk slow enough. So my name is Mark Graham, and I am an architect, and I'm part of the design team. But maybe just to help out, just to let you know, all I work on is public safety across the United States. I have been in many, many of these types of meetings because, believe it or not, public safety is one of those facilities that there's always questions about what it is, where it goes, why here, why not over here, isn't it better served here? And I can tell you, like I said, I've never been in a meeting that everybody has been in total agreement. And you're right, I think we do have the right to disagree, but I think one of the things that you're going to see is that there may be some misconceptions about the facility. That's why we want to inform you. We want to be as transparent as possible about what it is, what's being planned here, and how it is, because I think more often than not, what I've seen across the United States, and I say it across the United States because I don't want to say it's just Texas, even though I live in Texas, it is pretty much that everybody has some preconceived ideas about this, that I think if we can help maybe alleviate some of the fears, some of the issues in your mind, it may help that this site selection is not as adverse to the community as some people may think. So with that, I'm going to try to take you through this process, what we've come through so far. As has been explained, this is a design build solicitation. It's a little unusual. I don't know if you've ever seen a design build, but again, we are just gathering information in order to tell a contractor, I'm going to hold this down because I want to make sure you guys can hear me clearly, that what we want in this. So as you see up here, there's a series of boxes. In looking at the program, understand that while this goes out into public safety, there are so many other elements that as we look at, we try to break this down into individual buildings so you can understand that this is not just a fire administration, because as part of fire administration, there's fleet maintenance, there's academy, there's learning spaces, there's didactic training, there's hands-on training, there's all kinds of elements. And so I'm going to walk you through them. These boxes that you see in front of you are actually to scale. Now, granted, it's a small scale and you'll see how it fits on a site, but they're to scale to each other so you can see which one's bigger than the other. I'm going to explain what they are. And as we get to the end, if you want a little more detail about any of these buildings, what are they? How do tell me more about this? What is it? What kind of noise can be generated? What kind of smoke? That's always an issue. You've got this fire training tower. What's going to happen out there? What is this driving? How do they conduct their driving? Is it going to be a problem? What is this? Hopefully we can answer all these and alleviate maybe some of your concerns, or if the best I can, I'm going to answer to what was planned, what we envision, and so we can move from there. So is that kind of sense? So if we can kind of hold questions, I think it'll be easier so we can move through, but just understand, definitely want to answer any of the questions you have. So I'm going to start, and you all see the screen from there? So I'm going to start with the bottom. And understand, these are boxes, so you see parking down there. Right now we're looking at, there's a fairly large amount of parking. If we counted all the spaces we need, we could use as many as 1,000 cars. Doesn't mean all the cars are going to park along Martin Luther King. I'm just trying to show you this is how much of the space we need to dedicate for parking. It will be dispersed throughout this facility, but that gives you an idea. I'm going to jump to the top 3-4 gray areas. These are driving elements. If you've ever seen a driving track, they're large concrete open pads. This is where the police officers and fire officers actually learn driving techniques, slow skills, backing skills, driving skills, parking skills, motorcade for motorcycles. all kinds of different elements, but they're large concrete pads. That's all they are. They're flat. They're not intended to be anything more than that. There's not structures in and around them because of the safety environment. Those, as you can see, at least on this site plan that we're looking, are the largest elements that you're going to see of the overall public safety facility. They encompass, we need to know they probably encompass about 30 acres. That's how much you're looking at there. Starting at the lower left, down here, one of the first buildings would be the fire administration building. It's exactly what you see that the fire administration now is. It's the headquarters. It's where all the police chief is, the fire chief is, his administration staff. Office building. Again, all of the structures we're looking, single story, 1-story building. You're not going to see these, 5, 10-story buildings. It's a single story building of an office environment. The little building just to the right of it, call it J, it's an auditorium. It's a 1,000-seat auditorium. It's not intended because that it's not going to be a shared space. It is a shared space. It's planned to be for large type groups. Indoor environment. Again, the parking lot would sustain it. 1,000 seats. We have a 1,000-car parking lot. So that's what we're looking at. D, going just to the right of it, what this is the Fire Training Academy. Now, when I say Fire Training Academy, as you know, there's a lot of hands-on training that people understand, but there's equally as much didactic training. Didactic training is what they're going to learn in a classroom. It's book, it's textual. They're learning EMT skills. They're learning medical knowledge. They're learning about fire behavior, but it's in classroom environment. So it's really an administrative indoor space, office space. To the right of it, F, you can see almost equally as large. This is what we're calling the Police Academy. Again, Police Academy have a lot of outdoors. Everybody understands what they do outdoors. They've seen the mat training. This is the academy. What we're talking about is didactic. It's classrooms. We were out there this afternoon. They have 125 people in an academy. So you can imagine how many students have to be in classrooms for all that book knowledge. That's what this F depicts here.
Speak up a little bit, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry, I can probably get closer to this microphone. The next one, G. This is basically, just so you can see where I'm pointing here. It's a graphic debate. It's an indoor shooting range. When I say indoor, it's fully enclosed, unlike what they have now. So it's 4 sides. It's a roof. Done many of these, and if you see them, the building type is about 18, 20 feet tall because the interior environment is 9 feet, but you will not hear any bullets outside of that range. They are quiet. Inside, yes, you do have hearing protection, but understand inside it's where all the noise is. You won't hear it outside. The ventilation systems nowadays, they are regulated by NIOSH, by OSHA, by a lot of different agencies. Only thing that gets emitted to the sky is about 99.7% clean air. There is no lead, there's no hazardous material gets emitted to the sky. It all goes into a 3-stage filtration system. That's usually a fear by a lot of people having a shooting range nearby. It's like, what about the lead? It's all encapsulated within this filtration system. So that is a indoor shooting range. As we move over and kind of up, you'll see it's a letter C. It's a long, skinny building. And what that is fleet maintenance. Again, this is all part of a public safety facility. Fleet maintenance, this is where, if you've probably driven by in their existing facility, backwards, that's logistics. This is the warehouse for fire. Every fire station, every fire department, you have to get supplies. Where do your supplies go? That's what this is. It's a warehouse. Above it is the fleet maintenance. Fleet maintenance, this is where they're taking care of all the police vehicles, all the fire vehicles are taken care of there. So it is when I say a large building, it's a large building because we have multiple bays in there, just like they have now. Trucks come in, they do all the repairs, and they go back out on the streets. I wish I could say it was a crazy noisy building, but it's what you would hear. The anticipated noise would be something you would similar to if you live next to a garage or a workshop where you hear maybe pneumatic tools. But understand, we want to bury this beyond other buildings, so you're not going to hear that too loud. It's going to be absorbed, but that's probably the biggest loud that would emanate from a vehicle maintenance garage. If we, let's move to the right. This looks like a small building, and the way what it is, there is an aquatic element to both police and fire. It's for rescue, it's for training, it's water safety, it's water instruction. And that's what this is. There's also a small pool house. What the pool house is, it's where the equipment goes. So it is That what you see there depicts both the pool and the pool house. Moving to the right, that R that you see is an outdoor running track, just like you'd see at a high school. In both police and fire, they have to do measured runs, how far they go. Best way to do it is have a track that you know, quarter-mile track. That's how they can distance. So while it's a box, it's not really a building, but I just want you to know it is a space that is going to be defined. It is a quarter-mile track, just like you'd see at any high school stadium. Within the track element, there is grass areas. There are other elements that both police and fire use, i.e. obstacle courses. They'll use physical training for a part of their daily routines, and that's what all happens within this outdoor track area. Over on the far right, we've got a series of small buildings. There, you see it's SKL. These are fire training structures, and this is what you saw the one depicted in the slide that Danielle had. One is a two-story residential. It is intended to look like a house. It's intended to look like houses that they would find throughout El Paso, because this is what the bread and butter of every fire department is. The other is a larger, taller building, similar to what they have out there now. This is where they practice their skills for all high-rise buildings. How do you rappel? How do you move the hose up 5 stories of stairs? What about inside? What about breaching? That's what these structures are. We're using live fire props. This sometimes has a fear for a lot of people. What are live fire props? They're actually propane-generated flames, controlled by computers. The only flame that will ever happen will be within the room. There aren't flames rolling out the building. There's no billowing smoke. Now, you will see smoke. I will tell you that. But what you're seeing is the theatrical smoke. It's nothing different than the smoke you see if you went to a Broadway show and if you sat in the 3rd or 4th row and that white smoke rolls across. That's all it is. It is a white smoke. It is biodegradable. It's not. It's basically to create an environment within the building of realism that you can't see because they are moving through a dark building. So that's what those buildings are, but you will see smoke. Now, most of the theatrical smoke will dissipate probably within 50 feet of the building. It will never make it to a property line. Where these are located, it will actually be gone because that's the nature of the smoke.
Sorry. Again, Michael Vanossic with the City of El Paso. One thing I want to emphasize is that as this is a design build, the design is not done, the site layout is not finalized yet, and this number of buildings that he's showing are more like requirements than buildings. They're and adjacencies. So some of these buildings may combine into one building or separate into, I doubt they would separate into more than one, but they could separate into more than one based on the requirements as we develop those. Likely you will not see all of these buildings in this exact order. These are adjacencies of things that need to be next to each other and have access to each other, and multiple buildings that may ultimately get combined once we, for budgetary reasons, once we finalize our requirements and finish our estimates and align that with our budget. So this is the requirements of what we're doing, and kind of like think of a bubble diagram of this department and this department, kind of like your kitchen needs to be next to your dining room in your house.
Correct. Yeah. So sorry if I didn't clarify that, but he's right. You know, as we look at these, there are differences in buildings, and it does make sense that they would be two distinctly different buildings, such as, oh, sorry. So they are distinctly different. For example, we wouldn't want to put a fleet maintenance building conjunction with administration building. That just doesn't seem plausible for a lot of reasons. One is you've got an interior clear environment of maybe 20 to 25 feet. Well, the other building is not even that tall. So making these mega buildings, and I have done these in the past, they are actually more expensive because there are all kinds of fire codes and mechanical issues that we come across trying to have all kinds of uses in one large building. Sometimes it makes sense to make them separate just because of their function. So as he said, we can combine some. When you see, you know, fire academy, police academy, while they are two elements, yes, they can be the same, but we just want you to see how they are two, how big they are, because some people want to, is the police bigger than fire? Do they need more space? And so this is relative of the spaces that they've asked for. See what we got. Hogan's Alley, and I'm trying to pick out some of the structures that I think most people may kind of want to know what that is. Hogan's Alley, it's a series of buildings depicted in a small cityscape. And when I say a small cityscape, it's probably no more than maybe 700 to 800 feet. And all it is a series of buildings so that the police actually can see what it's like to walk down a street and have multiple scenarios play out in front of them in a real life scenario. We call it Hogan's Alley. It's just, it's a name given to it. What happens in there? It all happens on the ground level. It's not like they're dealing with things that are going to be, high things. So the buildings are 1 story. We do have 2-story housing elements because you come across 2-story houses in the neighborhood. That, for the most part, I don't want to take all the time because I could talk for hours on all these buildings, but that's kind of the general. So at the end, if you have any questions more about any of the buildings, really just think about them. And I'm going to let Sarah talk about the site, but keep in mind this diagram and when I say this diagram, I'm looking on back here, that is to scale. And then she's going to show you an image, how big it really is and compared to the site, because you're going to see it's not as big as maybe someone you think. And again, these adjacencies that we're showing is the whole idea is that they do have to somehow be on the site together. And we do look at clearances and everything else. So we'll hold questions for now. Let Sarah finish and then we'll have questions.
I'm not that tall. We'll come down to here. All right, so let's go back to our site. And I am going to ask that we make the assumption that we are going to work under the constraints of this 300-acre piece of property. So we can use those constraints to gather information about what might be concerns, what might be things we need to address in the future, and what we need to kind of continue to write into the guidebook that is going to be these bridging documents for the team that's coming along after us. So again, we have the aerial site that shows the overall property that is part of this open space conservation. So the green is what's being designated towards that open space, and the blue is the 300-acre property that is dedicated towards the academy. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that we have an archaeological designation right here. So that's another portion of that site that we are making sure that we are preserving and protecting and staying away from. We also have a lot of easements and accesses that we have to leave in place. So one of these is the trailhead. So right here, that's actually already a designated easement access to get to that trail point and go for it. So we need to preserve all of those in place. And so as you can see, this starts to chop up this really large piece of property into smaller and smaller sections that we need to start looking at how the overall program fits into place. And then the other thing, and then I would love to get your feedback about where those kind of trailhead points actually are so we can clarify and document that based on the information we found. The yellow lines represent every trail that we could identify and how our site is not going to affect the access to those. And so we have a major trailhead at the park, and then we have what looked to be another trailhead more up towards the foothills of the mountains, and then there's the one directly across from the neighborhood. So what that leaves us is trying to situate the fire training and the police academy on this 300 acres so that it is shifted as far away from the neighborhood to create a reduction in noise, but still allowing as much open space as we can, even within that 300 acres. So the intent is to start to create a campus feel and a campus environment so that it becomes a compact siding that then has these larger elements, especially like the driving track, where there might be some concerns with the noise the farthest away from those neighborhood properties. So now we're going to move to the polling section and get to know how you guys really feel about some of this. And then we'll go back into the kind of interactive question answer session, and maybe we'll even show off a little and do a little drawing on the board, because we are architects and supposed to do that every once in a while for you guys. So, all right. Drill down. You can't be caught.
I'd like to see the flow path. You've shown one FEMA flow path on there and the way they've addressed it. But could you show the other ones through the parcel?
The, meaning like the parking or the trails or?
The flow paths through the parcels.
Oh, the water.
Yes.
Yeah. Show you those.
Also, on your trailheads, as the other gentleman mentioned, the actual trailhead for that area, or it should, and then you mentioned two other trailheads, now one at Andrew Barsana and what's the? Oh, you're talking about Chuck Heinrich. You didn't give him names, so I didn't know what you were talking about.
Okay, everyone, we want to do a quick poll. If I can get everybody to take, you could take out your phones. It's going to be a text poll. If you want to participate in the poll, if you please can text PD and FDT 412 to 22333 in order to start the poll.
Please help.
And then it's going to prompt you to answer a question, and please answer, do you use the hiking trails, A or B? It's going to automatically change as soon as we get all the responses.
Explain that again.
Yes.
I have a phone, but I don't know what to do.
Let me walk you through it.
So we're texting to that name up there.
Yeah, you are texting to this number.
Texting to that number.
You text, you're going to text to
3
ED, so up here in
in
recipient.
the text message, you're going to text
And
PD and FDT 412.
DT.
Do it now.
I have one extra T. One extra D, I'm sorry. FD.
And this automatically populates as soon as we get more answers. I'm going to leave this question up so we can get everybody to answer the first question.
Now, just in the message space, put 22333. Hit send. Now, if you can answer either A or B, to, whichever is your response, and you will text that, either A or B.
I want to make sure we get everybody's responses, so I'm leaving this question on for a little bit more, and then we'll move on to the next question.
It should be going, let me see. Left out a D after N. It's not going to the right place.
So we'll wait a little bit, so make sure everybody's question gets in, and then after that, it gets really easy.
D.
You have to put the question in.
As
Yeah,
in
ARB. You have
fire.
to- Yes, and yes, it didn't take that, so.
T. 412. And the message.
I don't have my phone this one because this is 4G.
What if you don't have a phone? Somebody, is there a laptop you can do it off of?
We can do an online poll after.
Rick.
Should we get that question come up on our phone?
No, but
No, just the question. So you text, the number to text is 22333, and in the text message, make sure you're writing PD and FDT 412.
Yes.
Question number 1 is
Yes.
and then here we're going to put PD.
PD and FDT 412.
It sounds like it would work really good from a design standpoint, but then in practice, not always.
What's the matter?
I'm putting in what they say there.
There you go. Now you can. Do anybody else need assistance here?
Okay. Okay, I'm moving on to the next question. I think everybody got it, right?
Yeah.
How often do you use the hiking trails? A, for never. B, rarely. C, often. D, frequently.
Here, C.
Just demoralizing me.
And we're recording all these answers, so at the end, we'll keep.
I'm trying to get it. I don't know.
Can I catch up? They
Yeah.
said that we're gonna provide
We
it.
have 30% of people use it quite frequently, once a week. Which trail do you use the most? Lazy Cow Trail A or Mad Cow Trail B?
One day it's not gonna make a difference.
You want to make a loop?
That's kind of a weird question from people who use the trails.
All of them.
It's just the most. We had to choose. If you had to choose one.
Actually closer to the facilities.
Sure, yeah.
There is that count, but it's not really close to the area we're talking about.
This is like one of the Google security questions.
Comment cards out so we can capture things like your comments on the
It's a very
trail.
important question. Do you live close to the facility? A for yes, B for no.
What happens if it tells you you can no longer respond to this activity? Then what?
Blow it up.
Already closed. Did you get it?
It's probably to the past question.
It means,
It means that you were answering to the previous question again.
when the only two options are A or B. So that's why it's saying that you sent the response for the previous question. So it's telling you you can no longer input.
So what does close mean? 5 miles?
Yeah, that's, yeah, it all seems relative too.
I can walk there in 5 minutes? What's close?
What is your opinion of what's close, I think is probably the most relevant.
You're close.
You're District 4, you're close.
I'm not sure I really understand how this poll is helping us. If we could like move on and, move to this comment section, I just feel like it doesn't, it's one of those make us feel good kind of things, like we gave input. And so I would like to propose that we move back to the comment section, please.
What's the next question?
We only have 2 questions. We will complete that. And then we'll go back to the presentation and the question and
That
answer.
was the last question.
Oh, that was the last one.
Shook your head, no. I said at least there's something. That wasn't referring to.
You want to share yours?
Yeah. Biggest disagreement. Is what's for dinner. What's this stuff? I retired 10 years ago. I'm out of that mess.
All right.
Let's start with what questions do we have? While I'm getting this pulled up, we can kind of start responding to some of those.
Some of the online
Okay.
questions, because I feel that they have not been responded to. So we're gonna start with, if everyone online, if you could politely on the chat, put your name so we could call on you and we'll take your questions. Any questions from people participating virtually? Now is the time to take some.
Carter raised her hand.
Carter has a
Okay,
raise.
Miss Andy Carter, if you'd like to please unmute, ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering what would happen to the old academy. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering what would happen to the old academy, and would that still be up and
Yes.
running?
Yes, ma'am. This is Jerry DeMuro, Assistant Director of Capital Improvement. The old academy will not be in service. It has not been determined as to the disposition of that property at this time.
That would be the fire academy or police? You're talking about the police academy?
I'm talking both.
Both?
We have Ms. Nasa Harden. That's also next. Does that satisfy your question, Ms. Carter? Okay, great. Ms. Harden? If you'd like to unmute for your question.
Yes, I've unmuted. Thank you. I'm just changing my video. Mine is more of a concern. The location of the academy is just in poor choice. We should not be building on our mountain. I'm very concerned that we're taking up 300 acres for the academy, and I did vote for this bond. I'm all for building an academy for our firefighters and police officers. But this park is the same. This land use that you want to encompass is as large as the Rio Bosque Park, 300 acres. And I firmly believe, that we have got to find a better location than building on our mountain. And I disagree. This is not a done deal, just like the gentleman earlier said. And I want it on record that we should not be building on our mountain. We already know the city is very much in tune to public space as per the Lost Dog site. We just don't want buildings and infrastructure on our mountains.
So I'm just going to, as a response, I just want to let you know. So when you see those images, the images that we depicted, the total site that we would be using is only about 60 to 65 acres of the 300. So in reality, we're only looking about, maybe 1/5 of the entire site to be utilized. So it's not the whole 300 acres. And I think that's where some people say it's 300 acres site. It's site's 300, but we are only going to displace maybe 65 acres. And again, of that, as I explained, about 30 acres is driving track and parking, just flat open space. So hope that helps.
Okay, so I do want to clarify. OSAB looked at this property. There's, I think, 1,500 acres in total. And we were told, yeah, you got that whole green spot. And then there's the 300 acres that would be the part, and there's only the 60 acres that's the academy. OSAB does support that this academy be on this area, and with the 300 buffer zone and the 60 acres. In exchange, they were getting the conservation easement on the whole 1,500. Now, the only thing I think we're questioning is, where does this 60 acres get put in this 1,500? So I want to make sure people understand OSAB's position, and that is that, yes, we want this, we want it on this property, but it's a question on where on this property does it go, as long as it's along those lines. The whole 1,500 acres goes under a conservation easement, saving it in perpetuity.
And I would add to that, just to clarify, I think something that.
Can you identify yourself really quick for the
Yes,
folks
this is
online?
Dr. Bonart, and I think that what needs to be understood by the general public is that without this deal, the 1,500 doesn't get saved. This is predicated on generous offerings by the Public Service Board, as well as some money that was available at BOAC to purchase part of this parcel, and the input and contributions from the Public Service Bond to fund the rest. Otherwise, it's unaffordable. And the likelihood that this would be saved if you didn't go through with this deal is very, very remote. This is in the path of development. The other side of Mount Martin Luther King is slated for development already. This was originally the northeast master plan. There's a plan in effect that could have built on this whole parcel, and that was the plan. Yeah, we won at Lost Dog. That was a 20-year battle, and there was money exchanged for that in excess 4 times more than what we are giving on this parcel. So we're getting 1.5 times more for a quarter of the capital investment. So again, I would also agree with what Joe Garabai just said. The site is perfect. The deal is perfect. I don't even have a problem with the 300-acre total site. I would just encourage everyone to move the facility as far to basically the north within that parcel as you could. And that's why I kind of wanted to see what the drainage does look like further to the north. I don't think it's a big issue. You can see the flow path on the south portion. I'd like to see the flow path that goes through the rest.
Joe Molinar, City Representative, District 4. So, been in other discussions with constituents, and yes, they are concerned with the noise, but is there any way, or if you have on a PowerPoint presentation, that you could visualize that we could see more or less where the site will be?
You had it up there earlier. It was in the city's original PowerPoint presentation, and it showed like 1,162 feet away from where that P is for parking, I guess.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That's not
You're
quite right.
broke it.
This worked in testing, guys.
Kind of beautiful like that, though.
It's like using permanent marking.
You tried.
Try to refresh.
Refresh.
I mean, to me, it's like, they need to know, especially the people of North Hills. They really need to know where it's going to be, because that, to me, is like the huge concern that I've heard from my constituents. It's like what Dr. Bonard says, there's reasons for it, and I support those reasons, but at the same time, as a representative, I need to make sure that the voices of the constituents are being heard as well. And at present, right now, I don't really know where it's at. And yes, like this gentleman said, hey, build it more north towards the quarry. That's an idea, but at the same time, we're using that dam for water storm purposes, all kinds of other things. And I know you have the fire department and the police department here. You're gonna have noise. There's human activity, you're gonna have noise. At some point, whether they're going into the classroom breaks, lunch breaks, whatever, going home, getting there, whatever, it's gonna happen. The gentleman said something about Officer Andrew Barcena. I don't really forecast that to be open unless there's some type of, let's just say, for example, some type of ceremony or something at the park, at Chuck Heinrich Park or something like that. Access I would prefer for Martin Luther King for egress and ingress, and that's it, because that community is going to be overtaken. But on the other side about that, if you think about it, you're going to have fire vehicles, whether it's administration, they're going to be marked vehicles, you're going to have police vehicles there that are going to be coming in from different places. You're going to have more police officers in a concentrated area. They're going to have to go to lunch someplace. They're going to have to go to training 4 hours, all day training, all kinds of stuff. So you see value in that because the possibility that you see a marked fleet, whether it be red or blue or white, now is that, hey, that area, those people might think twice about burglarizing your house or stealing that bicycle or something else.
Ms. Guida?
Hi, thank you. This is Marilyn Guida. First, I'd like to say that I have no objections to the need for a fire and police academy, separate or combined. I think a more suitable location can be found for this type of facility. Second, I'm 100% in favor of preserving the entire El Paso water open space area. I think the conservation is great, the conservation easement, but there are other ways to preserve that land that have not been considered. For example, approaching Texas Parks and Wildlife with the possibility of combining this with Franklin Mountain State Park, since they do have a common boundary. To point out that there is a National Fire Protection Association, which has a series of standards. And 1402 is the standard on facilities for fire training and associated props. And there's a long list of standards, but I'm going to excerpt some of the ones that I think are appropriate to this. The first thing the fire standards say is that fire training and associated props should not be located near residential areas due to the noise, smoke, lights at night, and other disruptions inherent in fire training. The next, and we know, of course, how we've been told exactly how many yards or feet it's going to be, over 1,000. I think that issue is still valid. The standards also state that fire training should be accessible via roads that are not located near residential areas, that the location should be away from the center of community life to minimize negative impact on adjacent land use. So we know where the current location is decided upon, and we know it's already been mentioned, the 2,300 acre Paul Foster self-contained residential area with 9,500 dwelling units, schools, shops, parks, recreation, and commercial, right across the street from the academy. The standards also say that the fire training facility should be as centrally located as possible for the departments and personnel that will be using it to minimize travel time and remoteness from protection districts. So I don't think anybody in El Paso would say that this location so close to the Texas-New Mexico state line is centrally located. Really, that's ridiculous. The standards also say vehicle traffic patterns should be studied and the most convenient route to the training center should be identified. Heavy noise-producing apparatus should be routed to avoid residential areas. Travel time to the training center for users should be taken into consideration. So we've already noted that Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is the only option for access to the academy. And the last point I'm going to mention, although there's many, many others, is that the master plan of the area should be considered. Well, I'm not an expert in master plans. I've looked at a bunch of them. None of them mentioned the academy, of course. So in addition to the main areas of the academy, well, actually, I'm going to end there because you've described exactly what you're looking to locate, and it wasn't as clear on the city slideshows that were shown in the public meetings. So to me, this all adds up to the fact that the Joint Academy is not in the best possible location for this community, and it's not in the best interest of the Joint Academy and those who will be trained there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Guida. Representative.
I just want to add something really quick, just along the lines of what Representative Molinar said, and just speaking from experience again as a representative. I do share concerns about the location of where this is placed based upon my own experience as the District 1 rep that has the area that you have a small sliver that goes off of Central and basically the entirety of Scenic Drive. And we hear every couple months about the noise from the police academy that's there. I get it. It's a different sort of situation. It's a different facility that was built many, many years before. And again, there's probably outdoor facilities that would be located indoors. But I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I wouldn't be concerned about the location of that and so close. I understand that there's a value add in terms of some of the utilities saving money for the city by locating it there. But I do think that looking at having it within that 300 acres further north is something at this 0% design level should really be explored in earnest. And I think just so that it's clear when people are talking about what that looks like, I'll use analog technology here. You got sticky notes. So I think kind of the idea is right now is placing it over here, right? So I think if you're looking at an area over here, which I think is what Dr. Bonar had probably mentioned at OSAB and at BOAC, you're looking at an opportunity here, I think, to create much more of a buffer area and much more of a campus feel. Again, everything on the other side of the Roundhouse trailhead and trail, this will never be touched again. All of the area that goes directly against the Franklin Mountain State Park, which is what, 300, 400 acres from probably the tip of the park, that will never be touched again. So I do think that even though you probably save some money, right, by having utilities close by, the potential headache of these residents from the cars, from the personnel, from these activities that are going on there, I think has a chance to be diminished by looking over closer towards this northern sort of section there. And again, saying that not necessarily as a trail advocate, trails, and this is the first time I ever actually went and mountain bike. They had a demo with Crazy Cat, and I was like on a $5,000 mountain bike, and I can never afford that, but that was a lot of fun. But I can tell you this is a beautiful area here. I'm just concerned again in terms of hearing what residents have already said, that without really taking that deep dive, having it so close to this when we could perhaps move it a little bit further, have a sort of nature-focused kind of campus towards this, something that is really great design. I think you're able to look at assuaging some of those.
And I would add something to this too as well. So you're worried about the advantage you're going to get from the drainage. Notice that you've placed your driving facility completely across the flow paths, if there are any in that area. So you're gaining no advantage by placing your facilities. You're looking at protection from the dam. You're only overlapping that dam, but just a teeny bit of your driving facility. You should orient the driving facility up and down and push all your other stuff over this way. Get away from the neighborhood. I think you'll save, as Representative Forsmine said, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches.
I think it's.
Facilities are going to come to that area.
I think it's.
Site plan, but one idea that we discussed was, well, for one, we could rotate that parking lot so that it's kind of more in the flow path. But the other thing is, there's heavy traffic on the trails, a lot of parking, a lot of congestion on the weekends. So we were considering having a place where people could park and have water stations, charging stations, bathrooms, and actually get people off the roads, off the neighborhood streets, and into this big parking lot on the weekends.
So I'm pretty well understanding about trails and trailheads. The trailhead is actually further to the north, the road to the trailhead, the main one. And Andrew Barcena doesn't access that way.
So as Mr. Vanossic pointed out earlier, no site plan has been done. We've shown you what needs to be adjacent to what. We have done no geotechnical work. We've done no assessment of drainage. We've done no assessment of traffic impacts. All of that has to be done. We've done no assessment of archaeology. That's currently being done. So there's a lot to do before we get to the footprint. I said that the property, the 300 acres, we are committed to.
And I think that you can accomplish multiple goals, but the theories that you'll save on utilities or that you're avoiding some sort of flood path, I don't think is being borne out by these maps.
Again, Michael,
All I'm saying. I hope that that's basically what they're asking. Please move this further away from our neighborhood.
I certainly think right now, this input is really what we're here for, is what we need. Sometimes there's you can do both, you can gain both. The utilities, for example, excuse me, I don't know when you can hear me and when you can't, so I'm not a public speaker. But the utilities, for example, are needed for the buildings. They're not needed for the driving tracks. The buildings don't make any noise. The driving tracks may make some noise. I suspect they do. So I see very much potential as we hear what you guys value, what you want. You know, understanding that our intent is to build on this 300 acres and we may not come to an agreement on that, but understanding what you guys value is that we build it away from those current residents. Future residents hey, it was there when you got there. You know, you make your decision at that point. But current residents, you build it, you know, they know what they're getting. I see a lot of potential, even if we, can you hear me if I walk over here? Yeah. Even if we leave these buildings here and gain that function of utilizing the utilities, rearranging these functions into that area. I think that's something we can really look at and consider. I think where we may have missed the boat or came up short or had a miscommunication is, I think we feel like we located it where the OSAP BOAC Advisory Committee recommended to us. And if we didn't, then shame on us and we can fix that. You know, here at this point, because like the gentleman said, we haven't stuck a shovel in the ground yet. Right now we're, excuse me?
Exactly how I said it, but go ahead.
I thought you didn't like gentlemen. I was sorry.
If you want to address me, just call me Orf. Old retired fart, and I'm fine with that.
You know, it's not set in stone yet. Right now, we're trying to find out what people want. We did this with the police department. There's a lot more drawn up there than what we went into the program with, of what they want. And we're going to try to get them everything they need and as much as they want with the money that the taxpayers have provided to us. You guys are a stakeholder here. We want to know what you want. If our meetings with the combined BOAC OSAP committee got us information that doesn't support what BOAC OSAP wants, then this is the place to tell us. And I see exactly what you're saying. I asked the same question this morning when I saw these, or this afternoon. Why didn't we put the driving up here in the north, where it's at least further away from the existing buildings? And so if that's something you want, we can task our our owner's rep developing our requirements for us to say that's a requirement. We want all the noise producing facilities, and we call these the noise producing facilities, located in this quadrant, you know, to the extent possible, I would say, you know. Okay. Can we take, is it okay if we take the online question first?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Fabiola Campos.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to ask a question, but not more like a question. I really thank you, everyone that is giving their feedback, and especially the presentation, and give this opportunity to the community and to the North Hills residents that they didn't like where everything is going to be done on the presentation you're making. But I see some fire and police staff there, and we can agree to disagree. Within those 300, I would like to hear their opinion about what is the best that they could see, because Mr. Demuro said that they have a list of wants. On those wants, what is included in their list? Do they mind that everything is moved farther? They don't mind. We would like to hear what they have to say, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are going to be using these facilities. So we could say something like, someone said, go to the north. By seeing the maps, on the north are all the trails. So we're here to preserve the trails, even if we have to preserve the open land, but we need to come to a middle point. And this is what is being presented, and I really appreciate everyone that is putting their 2 cents in this project. But yeah, I would like to hear from the ones that are really gonna be using these buildings, and see if they can adapt, or they really need to be in certain format, and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Ms. Fabiola. If I can speak for the fire department, and I think I know, you guys just want to make sure that the things you need there are there. And regardless of the property itself, you probably don't really care where they are in terms of.
Well, if I may, that being said, my name is Paul Thompson. I represent the union for the fire department. And so I'm assuming we already have a set budget for this, correct? And that amount is
That amount is split between fire and,
What's the total
and
amount?
police.
72 million?
71 point something, yes. But we are in accordance with the bond language. It's separate. Fire is over here and
So
police over here.
so that being said, the further north we go, I guess we could agree that there's gonna be more cost because of the utilities and all that. That being said, if we go all the way north, that could mean we're gonna have to cut certain things out of what's proposed, correct?
Well, as Mr. Vanossic said earlier, there are certain things that do not need utilities, like the driving range is not going to need utilities. So if we move the driving range to the north, we don't have to extend the utilities. And as Dr. Bonart mentioned earlier, Paul Foster has his development, the utilities are going to come down the street anyway.
That's gonna, that infrastructure will be paid for through the Public Service Board of the agreement, the development agreement. So there's a development that's going to have to occur there before they agreed to sell that land and made it inexpedient. Those things were taken into account with the Public Service Board's budget, whether they bring water. You know where the location of the electric facility is. It's actually not to the south, it's actually further north of you. So it's not like so the further north you get, the closer you are to the electric. So it depends on what infrastructure you're talking about. I think the nice part of what you've got is you've got MLK that goes by there. It's a pretty substantial avenue.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is if we go all the way north, is that gonna cause us to cut?
It shouldn't, you're part of usually those kinds of development agreements. Your budget is affected from the road, where the meter is gonna be, to you, okay? So in other words, the water is going to be brought, and water and sewer is gonna be brought along MLK. Your costs are gonna be fixed the closer you are to the road. It's not the further out that you get.
I was under the perception, somebody said that
I don't think
the reason why it's closer to the residential is because of
that they're currently there, but
it's more cost efficient. Somebody had said that earlier.
This is a situation
There's
where,
the utilities there already.
this is a situation where both can be true. Dr. Bonard's very likely correct in that that area is set to be developed and likely utilities will come. They're not there today. We're planning for today. That doesn't mean we can't coordinate. If they don't come, obviously the utilities end closer to where residential facilities are right now. But that doesn't mean that's the way it will always be. It may be that way when we construct. I don't know. My crystal ball's broken.
So whenever a development like this goes into place, and I'm talking about the one that Foster's going to do, the commitment is there, and it's not like they phase in the water. They have to
You build the
water
system.
has to be there big enough to supply that whole thing. So that's in the works. You're looking at a timeline of 2024. It's not like you need it right this second. So that coordination, that's something to look into. And if I'm wrong, fine. But I think that
you're absolutely correct.
Budget would not be affected by the responsibility of the utility to bring the service to you. Your cost would be from the service line onto your facility. I think you're actually closer to your electric. And I don't understand how the electric bills that out, but it's already there. It's not a far away. I just don't also think, what I didn't like hearing was the assumption that drainage is a big issue. And when I look at this map here, I'm not seeing the flow paths that you're afraid of.
I think when we were talking about drainage, it's just that we were putting 300 or 30 acres of concrete on the ground. And that's gonna take some strategic planning on how we're gonna move the water off that concrete and through the property. That's kind of more what we were
And
talking
that goes in with your green and your leads design.
Absolutely.
But if you look at what you proposed, the water runs from the high to the low, and you've placed a structure as a dam-like facility. Talk about worrying about how it's going to be affected by drainage. You might want to go this way instead of that. That's all I'm saying.
So to your point, the answer is not necessarily. Moving facilities up, whether these additional utilities get built or not, it doesn't necessarily impact the facilities we can provide to these gentlemen. It could, but it won't necessarily, and it looks like it probably won't likely. And I think he's raised some very valid points that may well come into play before it's done. But even if we don't, we can look at facilities that aren't impacted by utilities and moving those. And those are really the facilities of concern for, I think, most of the people, because they're the ones that are going to make the most noise, I would say. And to honor the lady that asked, I think we asked the police and fire representatives to speak. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to him before he locks me up.
For the record, Peter Pasillas, Assistant Chief. To answer your question, I don't know, am I looking this way or? Okay. As far as goes, the plot of land where we're at, as far as the police department is, we like where it's at. And what the design team or this whole team that's talking to you all, what they've done is they spent an extensive amount of time with our staff and what our needs are and what our wants are as far as that goes. What we have to do is we have to rely on their expertise on how they put this in this area as far as it goes. So what they're doing with you all with these meetings is what they've done with us. They're listening to what our needs are. And from our point of view, putting the police and fire academy together, this is decades long time coming because we do so much together out there in the field. We're going to the same scenes and this and that. So we're able to train a lot better together in those multiple different worlds that we work in. So I don't know if that answered your question, Ms. Lopez.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Another thing that I don't know, I work so much with other kind of projects around Mission Valley, and I could see that the one thing that I don't live in the area, but that's my opinion. Okay, in this facility next to the residential and how that area is growing and it is expected to grow. Living there, I would have preferred that facility for the firemen and police than having another someone else buying that 300 acres and making it a residential area. So that's my personal opinion, and I understand that we would prefer not to build anything, but that usually doesn't happen. And just for seeing it that Mr. Foster is coming with a new residential wouldn't be another one, his competition to come and try to buy those 300 acres from the city and get another residential area there. So just not, we have to deal with whatever is being offered right now. And I think I could agree also that moving the pieces around until we can put everything far from the residential area, is that what the constituents from District 4 want? I would agree more. But the thing is, just don't think that by everyone not accepting the project, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be lived without being built. As that growing, the growth is coming to that area, like I say, the competition for the other family will come around and say, we're gonna, and they will not care how much it's gonna be paying for, as long as they acquire it. So saying that, I really like what is happening right now because everyone is putting their feedback, and I think when this meeting will be over, everyone will have an idea why the constituents for District 4 would like to see there and how to accommodate the pieces. Thank you so much for your attention.
Good afternoon, good evening. Jonathan Killings from the El Paso Fire Department, Assistant Chief. Just to build on what Chief Pasillas was saying, this location is ideal as far as the size, the acreage that's provided. It provides a really unique opportunity to have a joint facility for fire and PD. There's a lot of training gaps that can be filled by having both fire and PD on the same site, being able to train together. There's also a lot of advantages to combining the two facilities into one and being able to share some of the resources that are going to be on the site. We've spent a number of hours with the team here and expressed our needs. And as I believe it was Ms. Guida that was online that spoke about there's certain standards and guidelines that we have to follow as far as fire training facilities. All those have been heard, and so they have all our wants and our needs. And this meeting is just to, again, we're in such a beginning phase that nothing has been planned out. So this meeting is to get that input to help move the facility as their renderings are now showing. Just simple input from you all, they can move it a little further. As far as the specific locations, fire and PD, as long as it's usable and it's configured in a way that is efficient, we're flexible. We can work with that, and we've put our trust in that design team that their expertise will give us a really good facility. So yeah, we're on board, and we're working with the team.
Representative Molino, you had a question?
I was just going to say 2 quick points. I don't know if this is possible. I know there's a fire station right there near on Loma Clara, but you could move that one of the fire trucks, fire engines, go halfway into that 300 acres, let them turn on that siren and see what you hear. But you're not going to be hearing that siren, but it's just to compare noise. That's what I'm saying. So I do have a constituent. He's a retired battalion chief for the fire department, and he tells me all the time about you guys need a museum. He says this would be the perfect place to put a museum for the fire department. I agree, but of course we need to talk budget, but that's another concern. So thank you.
Yes, the fire chief has raised that concern. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate this opportunity to say a few things. I could rant at length about location and land and whether you use it or not, but I'm going to spare you that. What I think we have opportunity here for a learning point for future such operations. And that is an opportunity for greater transparency and openness. Somewhere in the slides, it talked about different things that happened from December of 2020 and April 19th to 2021. And all those events were behind closed doors. Yes, it included the OSAB and it included the BOAC and it included the team that was created with those two. But they were behind closed doors. The public was not invited. Now, I understand that if the city is going to buy land that is privately owned, you don't want to advertise that, because then the person that owns the land is going to double, triple, quadruple the price because the city's interested in buying it. In this case, that does not apply because this city was buying its own land. So there is no reason to keep it secret. And I believe that you caused a lot of people, I know you caused me a lot of heartache by not bringing this into the open. So that's all I'm saying. When you're going to bring this up, any kind of land deals, don't keep it secret. Have it in public hearings and let people know. And then you're going to get a lot more input from the beginning instead of coming out afterwards, people pissed off. So I suggest more openness and transparency. Thanks for your time.
I have a design type question, like theoretical design type question. Would you guys rather have higher density buildings that have less footprint?
Let's not go there.
Okay, sorry.
We're not at the design stage yet.
Just wondering in terms of building heights, there's a preference.
Low rise is preference, but low rise isn't always possible. So let's.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Project, go ahead.
Hey, I'm trying to be serious. That's hard enough, okay? Mr. Molinar pointed out that I should introduce myself. I'm kind of backwards in that respect, but I was a fireman for 30 years here in El Paso. The last 10 of which I ran the academy that's located at Western where Western Playland used to be. If you look at that P for the one next to the housing, I live just below that. So my backyard is going to be right next to the academy. And you know what? Initially, when I heard where they were going to put this location, I thought they were going to tear out the Roundhouse where the hikers and the bikers and everybody go. And if you're familiar with that area, and if you're not, sorry. But anyway, I was livid, let's just say. And I get passionate, as you can tell. I'm probably this read up to here by now, but anyway, when I found out it was actually going to be, they weren't going to touch the Roundhouse, and it was going to be closer to my house. Initially, I said, "Whew, well, that's better." But the more I thought about it, I said, "That's ridiculous." And so I looked into it, and I agree. Like I believe everyone here, everyone online says, we need a new police and fire academy. I know the fire department, the fire academy is at least 60 years old. Police academy, probably the same thing. We both need new academies. My concern is that location right there. Has anyone spoken to Mr. Ballou from the CEO from Water? Okay, you have.
Yeah. I hate to tell you, but I'm kind of.
Well, then don't tell me, sir. Don't tell me yet. Let me finish, and then you can stomp on what I say. Okay. My point being, you talk about the flood. When you look at that, that's what they call North Hills Dam 1, and the other one's North Hills Dam 2, where all the other bikers go above the park. If you look at in the city stormwater presentation, if you will, their master plan, North Hills Dam 1 and 2 are both susceptible to failure. Okay, I'm sure you all have looked at that. Okay, I'm just bringing this up in the open because does anyone know that you've looked at that? And that's North Hills Dam 1. Now, North Hills Dam 2 is more susceptible to the failure, but that dam feeds into the other one. And if that one fails, it's going to empty right into the academy. Okay, then my next concern, as Ms. Guida brought up, were the NFPA standards. Now, the fire department Assistant Chief Killing stood there and said they've looked at those standards. Well, they must have looked at them with a blind eye because, and it's already been brought up, there's no way that that's centrally located as that NFPA standard states. When you look at the thoroughfare, it just does not meet a lot of parameters of that NFPA standard. So, like I said earlier, if you're dead set on putting it in Northeast, in North Hills, then move it up near the rock quarry. You know, we're still going to have the traffic and the fire trucks going by. You won't have to worry about the failure of that dam right there. And look, in reality, is that ever going to fail? Most likely not. Okay? I don't have to hide behind, well, it says it could fail. You know what? It's just something I dug up, not that I wanted to. Actually, Ms. Guida brought that to my attention. She's a heck of a researcher. I can say that. So thank you to her. But moving it, and you've already said it, what the utilities is from the street. So they've got to get the utilities there. And as far as what you're going to put on the site, let the professionals figure it out. That's their job. I don't think anybody in the city could care less whether they put the track here or where they put the track or the buildings. Although if you're going to put it close to housing, then yes. And I believe you all are professional and you see that. You've done this. You've said it. You don't want to put something making a lot of noise next to the houses. But I still don't see why you can't move that from there up to where the rock quarry is. And I think in speaking to Mr. Ballou, he might be okay with that move and still allow us, because as Miss Ackerman said, it's all city property. It all belongs to the PSB. So what are we losing? Why can't we save all that land?
I'm not.
Bonart said that it took 20 years to save Lost Dog, went to a petition. Why can't we do the same thing if it has to? If it has to come to that adversarial, why can't we do that? And I don't know what it entails. You know, Mr. Bonart, his wife, I understand. Congratulations to them, and I don't know what words, but they were very instrumental in saving Lost Dog. And I appreciate that. I've never been there. I'm kind of what they call Northeast riffraff, and I like staying on my side of town. And I just like hiking those hills with my dogs. But I see no reason why, once again, and then I'll hush. If you're dead set on putting it in Northeast, which is a horrible location because it's not centrally located, just move it 2 miles down the road near the rock quarry. There's already, the mountain's already been decimated. There's no dam up there that you have to worry about overflowing or failing on you. I don't think that's too much to ask to just move it.
The city's committed to this site. The city is committed to this site. The land has been purchased. We are getting 1,200 additional acres, which I'm not so sure we would get if we moved it further to the north. This dedicated conservation easement. So, I mean,
I understand that, and I don't understand all the political workings, but like Ms. Ackerman said, so much of this was done behind closed doors. And did it need to be? I don't know, but if it's all PSB land, which the city owns, then why did it have to be behind closed doors? And why can't
the only thing that was behind closed doors was the transaction. We have held 2 public meetings prior to this one.
How was that announced to the city circus? I didn't know about them.
A mailer was sent to the North Hills neighborhood, and I don't know how the other one was announced. It was virtual.
You think I do social media?
Our newsletter. That's District 4, by the way. Our newsletter and Facebook. But 2 meetings.
And I believe the city posted in the press, issued press releases, and it was on the city's website as an event.
Then I know ignorance is no excuse, okay? But how many people do you think that information reached? Yeah, and I understand that's, you meet the parameters or whatever the law, the statutes, whatever it says. You have to give them this much time and and it has to be sent to this many people. But in reality, when do people find out? Like me, after the fact. So now
we're doing our best to communicate.
Sir, I'm not knocking you. I'm just here with some options, some
And
other options.
the option to move it 2 miles north is off the table. Yes, sir.
I found all of those meetings. They were out there. We tried to make this open. The city really has tried to work with us on this, and we are working with PSP. Lost dog cost a fortune. When we gave down to it, we won. We're getting that whole green area up there saved with the conservation easement. If this doesn't happen, that could actually become developed again. And that's really how come those of us who are really out, fighting for open space, that's the big win for us.
I'm sorry, that means I'm not fighting for open space right
Well,
now.
what I'm telling you is if
I understand.
we give
I
this
appreciate
up,
what you've done for
we're gonna
Lost Dog.
lose that. We could lose all of that green spot up
Okay. Did you entertain the thought of perhaps taking it to the voters, the petition that you did with Lost Dog? And listen, I'm ignorant. I don't have a problem saying I'm ignorant when it comes to certain things.
So we could do that, but that's a big fight, 20 years and a big price tag, huge price tag. We got this cheap.
How would you pay for this?
Yeah.
And what do you think you would pay?
Enlighten me. Enlighten me.
Let me enlighten you as to how this came about. Because I'm the evil guy that you can point at that made this happen. So back in the day, if you look at your map up there and you see that little P that's kind of right there that you know is the roundhouse, do you know where that is?
Okay.
Something that I think we need to stop fighting amongst each other. I think we're all advocates of this land and of this mountain. And I think that the frustration needs to be targeted to the city and not amongst each other.
But she's a high school librarian. And she helped a lot with Lost Dog.
You stay there because we're fighting. That way I can't reach you.
So
it's okay.
I'm right with you, sir. I agree with you. It does need to be moved. We need to protect this open land.
Look, I'll tell you how this came about. There's nothing nefarious about it. It's a smoking hot deal. There's no way to put this together. And I
Okay,
deal with this stuff forever.
Then let me be trivial and say, if you lived where I live, would you want it right there?
I would have no problem with that because you're preserving.
And
so
since I've already
much.
said that I was okay with it being at my house instead of tearing out the roundhouse,
Yeah.
if that's where it ends up, but I want to know that everything was looked at and this
So
gentleman
many-
says.
Let me just interrupt you. So many people, one of the main things that happens to people in this town, as they buy, like, say, a parcel next to the P that's kind of at the bottom, which is Andrew Barcena, those people, at some point in time, there's a lot of naivety, and they go like, here I am, look at my beautiful desert view, it'll never be interrupted. Only to see the next parcel be sold, and now they're looking at people's backyard. So if I was one of these people there now, and I was gonna be next to this designated huge area of open space, and my property values have probably gone up as a result of that, I'd be really thrilled to have that kind of facility next to me. I don't want the fire
But to add to
station
that,
next, I want it to go.
my house, as I've said, does abut that open space. And I've lived there for 18 years since the house was first built. I've always thought they would put more houses there.
They were going to.
And that's, you know what, that would be fine with me, okay? But putting in an academy, well, I don't know that it would be fine with me. I shouldn't say that with Judy sitting right there, but
Because I mean,
yeah, housing would be better than putting a fire academy, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make. A fire academy does not belong there. It does not belong there, okay? And if you look at those NFPA standards, and I'm not gonna apologize, because otherwise why say it? But they have failed to abide by those NFPA standards.
Sir, I think,
So that's what Marilyn brought
I
up.
think we have heard you and the rest of the public here. As I mentioned, the city's committed to this site. That is where it's going to go. The fire department said it's a great location. The police department said it's a great location. It was relatively inexpensive. We paid 25% of the appraised value. And we got, instead of 300 acres, we've got 1,500 acres. For
25% of appraised value for the 300.
For the 300.
Oh, by the way, let's just give you 1,200 extra acres for nothing.
Yes, Representative Maldonado.
Thank you. If you can see from the map right there, that green area, that's going to be the conservation easement. So let's give credit to Representative Schwarzbein. I know I brought the item forward.
Yes.
Representative Schwarzbein amended it behind my back. No, just kidding. But anyways, it was a thing. And I have been accused, and I'll say that right now to be transparent, that there was nefarious meetings for this. I'm going to tell you right now, no. Because I can tell you, when I was sitting on that dais, or really I was at home, because we were still virtual at home, it came to my head, if we have Lost Dog, we have Napland, why can't we do it here? And through Representative Schwarzbein, like I said, he did amend it, which is great. I have no problem with that. He's a more seasoned city representative, so that's how we came to be with that. But I want to make it clear that I was not involved in any backdoor meetings. I was not involved in any shenanigans or anything like that. It just came to me, and we talked about it, and I'm the one that put it on the agenda. That's how we came to get to this place right there. So I accept full responsibility for that. So that's why I'm here.
Yes, Representative.
I think we could probably go on for another
We probably
2
could.
hours, stuff like that in this brand new space that I've never seen before up until today. So, I mean, I think one of the most important things here, and why I, again, ultimately supportive of this, and why I think a conservation easement is so important is, I don't know if it was Ms. Ackerman or somebody maybe online talked about master plans. So it should be clear that like all of this right here is going to be developed. That's the 2,300 acres with Paul Foster. That's all getting developed. So now this area becomes much more attractive for any other future development, because it's not a question of what if happens in the next 10 or 15 years. It's what is going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years here. And this area, make no mistake, was already master planned to be developed the same way that Lost Dog was planned to be master planned and developed. And yes, the city was looking to develop Lost Dog. I never supported it. I was one of the few people that spoke up consistently and voted consistently against that. And when the Bonards and quite frankly the entire community with their leadership rose up with the citizen petition, I was very supportive. I was also told I couldn't speak out publicly against a citizen petition. Of course, when we had our own public safety bond, we could speak all in support that we wanted to. And it cost me. I was removed from the MPO, probably one of the most important boards or organizations that a city council representative could vote on. I was removed from that board by Mayor DeMarco. He straight up said, if that voter initiative passes, I will take your ass out. That's what happened. And you can imagine him saying it, because you can imagine him saying it. So that's all to say is that there was a lot of bloodshed for that.
And the reason why that was happened is because ultimately when it comes down to it, is that open space matters to this community. And this is a great compromise that allows 1,500 acres that would have been on that development chopping block had not this occurred there. And I totally understand your concerns as a former fireman and as a resident of that area. And I think that's why it's important to have these meetings and have this conversation now. And so, but I do think, again, that this is a very smart way to maximize our dollars and to fulfill two goals that are extremely important to this community, which is public safety, supporting our policemen, supporting our firemen, and supporting and preserving and protecting open space. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Representative. I want to thank everybody we have to be out of here by 8. I want to thank everybody for their time and their input here. I want to point out something though, what we brought to you and from the input we got, just rearranging the site a little bit. I want to say the measurement of, I'm gonna stay focused on these driving pads. The measurement from the residentials to the driving pads in the proposal we brought was about 1,000 feet. Little less than a quarter mile for you drag racers out there. Sorry, officer. Now it's about a mile, maybe a little bit more. So we've moved these facilities that are I think the facilities of concern, in my opinion, other than I'm just concerned with the entire thing being here, but the portions of it that have potential for people to be disturbed by the driving tracks have moved from 1,000 feet to a mile away, nearly. So this meeting, I think, was productive in that manner that we've heard at least some of what you're concerned with. Again, not what you want, but I think it's a hell of a lot closer.
You want in life.
I do not. It's a hell of a lot closer and it didn't ignore your concerns of I don't like it there.
Appreciate that. That's fine.
It's not in your backyard. It's 3/4 of a mile further away than it was when we started this meeting. And to me, I think that's a successful collection of input from you.
But to me, it looks like PD just got shortchanged on their.
Nobody got shortchanged nothing because wait.
I'm being comical. Relax. Have a sense of humor. If you take that the driving area you had that went north and south.
Yes.
Now it's going east and west.
Yes.
That looks to be like it's not going to be as long.
It's not as long.
Excellent eye for scale, and you are correct.
And that's usually what gets me in trouble.
Yeah. It is not, but we're not designed yet. And honestly,
relax.
No, I am relaxed. This is me relaxed.
You're worse than me, man.
But that driving path wasn't in the original requirement. So we'll work with the police and we'll get it laid out. But what I want to stress is that we're hearing you and we're going to try to accommodate. We have a mission we have to meet as well. You know, there's a mission that has to take place. We got to train police and fire in there. That's highly important. But that doesn't mean we have to cram this down any way possible. So there's some. I think we successfully heard at least some of what you're concerned with, and I think we can accommodate it.
Whether you agree with it or not.
Oh,
you heard it all.
Yes, sir.
Keep going. I'll keep going.
So again, thank you everyone for coming.
Stick to the friendly mode.